Okay, before I get started with my design, I am going to go to my Xtopo. Not necessarily need to do that at this point, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it now and get it out of the way. I need to create a surface. I need to have an existing ground surface of the topo. Using this information here. Of course, I can't do that from here because it's part of the XREF, so I need to go to the XREF file itself. Remember, once again, I could very easily go in here and click on these tabs, but it's just a bad habit. I really honestly think it's a bad habit. It's always best to go and navigate to your files, find the files so you can get familiar with your file structure and where they're at, and another thing too, verify. And remember here, you can even verify when you save those files and dates and all that stuff. So nonetheless, I'm going to go to Xtopo. Okay. So on my Xtopo, I'm going to create my existing ground file. Surface. There we go. And I want to see what data I can use. And at first glance, for sure, obviously, I can use the contours. The contours have elevation to them. I can hover over these, and you can see that these have elevations to them by looking at my coordinate readout over here. And then at first glance, I thought I could use these points because they have top of ground surface elevations. But that's not necessarily the case. A couple of things. I can grip it, and if I hover over it, notice that the z coordinate does not change. Okay, so then if I go over here and I notice that same thing, they are not with elevation. So unfortunately, I cannot use these as part of my surface because, or any of this information down here. Really, the only information I can use is for this up here. Okay. Another thing I'm going to do, I just like to have my surfaces nicely generated as much as possible, is I'm going to go back to my X master. And what I'm going to do is, okay, what happened here? There you go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use these feature lines. So I'm gonna copy them over. I'm gonna select them, right click, clipboard, copy with base points. Okay. And what base point is that going to be? Always 0, 0, 0. Since everything is based off of 0, 0, 0, I can go to my Xtopo, right click, since it's all the same coordinate system, and paste to the original coordinates, which is 0, 0, 0. And by the way, look at that. Okay. So the reason I'm using these, because these are tracing the existing curb. And it depends on the surveyor. They might have sent you contours. They might have sent you feature lines or 3D polylines with information. This one didn't. So since I had it already, I'm going to go ahead and use it. And I'll have to leave them here. I'll have to leave them here in the topo and the surface creation. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I'll have the feature lines here, and then I'll have them here also. But I'll use them a little bit differently on the X master. So on the X topo, that's basically what I'm going to do, is create the surface. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to call it existing ground, Ex-Gnd, or Ex-Gnd, however, no big deal. And then as far as the style, I just thought of something. I wanted to have the no display style, but it's not in here. Okay, not a big deal. I'll leave it as that standard style as the only one that's in here and hit OK. So there's my surfaces, and I'm going to go to definition and define it with break lines. This is really the only thing that I have is these polylines and the feature lines. Those all fall under the break line definition. So add, call it EG for existing ground, hit OK, and select all that information. Again, don't select this stuff down here. It's really just this information up here. Okay. This originally might look a little scary. Okay, and it's not that big of a deal. First of all, the first indication to tell you if the surface is good or bad is just look at it. Just look at it right here, and everything looks nice. Yes, this looks a little scary, and let me just kind of see what this says. Crossed a break line. And, okay, and then you don't have to, but I'm just going to click on here where it says zoom to, and this shows you what it found. Okay, okay, so I'm thinking what's happening is this polyline or break line crossed the feature line, and it just seems to just not like it too well. But again, I'm not too worried about it because if I go to 3D, I notice everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and close this guy, click over here, go to shaded, and it looks good. So whatever errors it found, it's not really going to affect me. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. So let me zoom in here, and okay. Well, if anything, we could have taken the time and to avoid this type of situation where we would have a nice Yeah, so it's doing some a little unusual stuff, but again, I'm not too worried about it. I really didn't need these feature lines. I could have avoided that by breaking the contours for not going through the feature lines to avoid that type of situation. But yeah, once again, it's just an existing ground surface, so I'm not too worried about it. So I'm going to continue with that. Okay. So let me go back to 2D wireframe. So I created my surface already, and again, these feature lines are on the X topo, and I need to leave them here. I can't delete them because if I delete them, it's going to want me to redefine the surface. So here in the X topo, I'm just going to go ahead and go to feature lines and freeze them. Okay. Again, it's in the X topo. It doesn't really affect the X master for the most part. Um, if we have those duplicate feature lines, not that big of a deal. These feature lines that I put in here, once again, are for the existing ground surface that I just defined. So I'm going to leave that alone and save. Okay. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a data shortcut so I can start sharing this information because I really, at one point, will need the existing ground on the X master. And if you notice, I clicked over to X master and it says to reload the X topo because there was a change. So yeah, right now there's really nothing CAD wise. It's just that I created the surface and I hit save. So you'll get that information here. You can go in here and right click and reload it, and that'll take care of that. Um, the reference drawing has recently changed. Do you want to compare differences? You can if you want to. I don't need to. I'm going to click no. Alright, so we're good to go there. I'm going to go back to my X topo. And I want to, that existing ground surface again, I need to share it throughout the project. I'll need it eventually on my grading plan, and I'll need it in different locations. So I'm going to go ahead and create a data shortcut. So I'm going to go here, right click, and create a new data shortcuts project folder. I just want to make sure that the working folder is that one where I have all my drawing files, and I'm going to name a new project folder, and you can name it however you want. I'm just going to go with all caps, no reason in particular. You can name it just Final Exam if you want to. I'm just going to call mine Final Exam Data Shortcut. Shortcut. Leave everything else default and hit OK. Alright. So then what I need to do is create the new shortcut, set the working folder, which is pretty much the one we have now, the Final Exam folder, or is it this one? Sorry, I don't do this every day, so I usually forget. Okay. If it's not, it's going to have to be the other one. And then create the data shortcut. Okay, that worked. So basically what it was is the working folder is the folder you're at now, which is basically that one, select folder. I'm guessing, to be honest with you, I really am guessing because I don't use this every day. It's so that the working folder is all the information that's in that folder, which is the other drawings that I do have. Because remember, under the Final Exam folder, I have um, my other drawing, and there's the folder that I just created. And by this being the working folder, it should reference these and look for surfaces in that folder in particular. So I'm going to go here, set the working folder, which I did already, and I'm going to create a data shortcut. You should see this right here, highlight it, hit OK, so that it gets added to the data shortcuts that I can then reference in other drawings. So at this point, I'm pretty much done here. I created the surface and I created the data shortcut. I can hit save. I'm just wondering if on the X master if it's going to find that data shortcut by itself. Reload X topo. Sure, not a problem. And it sure did. Look at that. Okay. So that was pretty easy. If not, you'll have to probably go in here and set the data shortcuts project folder. You'll select it from the list. What I did is I went on the X master, right click, and set data projects folder. Okay. I'm thinking everything that you work in here, I guess we'll find out here pretty soon, will be linking itself, and I can go in here and create references as needed. At this point, I don't, but you will a little bit later. Okay. So the next video will show you how we're going to start the design process.